unforgiving wilderness of the Arctic, where the sun disappears for months and the cold can freeze your very breath, one woman's extraordinary story of survival unfolds. This is the tale of Ada Blackjack, a young Inuit woman who, against all odds, survived 2 years alone in one of the most inhospitable places on Earth after a disastrous expedition. Ada Blackjack, née Ada Delatuk, was born in 1898 in Spruce Creek, Alaska, a remote settlement north of the Arctic Circle near the gold rush town of Nome, where the icy winds of the Arctic mingled with the tides of change. She had been sent by her mother at an early age to Nome, where she had been raised by Methodist missionaries who taught her to read, write, and cook white people's food. She had become an expert seamstress, and her skills at making fur clothing would prove invaluable. She also learned English and adopted some Western customs there. Life in Alaska was tough, but Ada's early years were marked by a resilience that would soon be tested to its limits. In 1921, a daring crew of 5 adventurers departed from Nome, Alaska, on a perilous mission to claim Wrangel Island, a desolate plot of land in Siberia. The mastermind behind this bold expedition was Vilhjalmur Stefansson, an Arctic explorer from Manitoba, known for challenging the popular belief that the northern polar region was an inhospitable wasteland. He famously dubbed it the Friendly Arctic. Wrangel Island, although technically Russian territory, was uninhabited, and Stefansson saw an opportunity. He believed it could be claimed for Canada or the United Kingdom. He was driven by the ambitious vision of transforming the island into a strategic airbase for future pan-Arctic flights. From the outset, the expedition was fraught with problems and seemed doomed to fail. Vilhjalmur Stefansson assembled a team of 4 young men for this audacious mission, 3 Americans and 1 Canadian, chosen as the nominal leader to lend legitimacy to their territorial claim. After departing from Seattle on August 18, 1921, they made their way to Nome, Alaska, in search of passage to Wrangel Island. Their goal was to secure transport for the men and hire indigenous Alaskans to accompany them on their journey. Despite their efforts, they struggled to find a ship willing to take them, but eventually managed to secure one. However, all the Inupiat families who had initially shown interest in joining the expedition backed out at the last minute. As a young woman, Ada married at the young age of 16 and had 3 children, but tragedy soon struck. She had to divorce her husband, Jack Blackjack. Jack had started to beat and starve her. He eventually abandoned her and their 3 children. 2 of the children had died. The surviving 5-year-old son, Bennett, suffered from tuberculosis, and the cost of his medical care was far beyond what Ada could afford. As an Inupiat woman, Ada Blackjack was expected to have been well-versed in hunting and survival skills. However, she was raised by Methodist missionaries, who taught her almost nothing about surviving in the wilderness. Instead, she learned English, at least well enough to read the Bible. When Ada heard about an expedition looking for an English-speaking Alaskan native with sewing skills, offering an unheard-of salary of $50 a month, Ada just couldn't pass up this unique opportunity. This job promised Ada a way out of her dire situation, so she seized the opportunity. It was a lifeline she couldn't ignore. Ada Blackjack, with her sewing skills and knowledge of cooking, was hired as the expedition's seamstress and cook. Before leaving for the Arctic island, she made the heartbreaking decision to place Bennett in a local orphanage, promising him that she would return for him as soon as she could. With her son's future hanging in the balance, Ada Blackjack set off on a journey that would test her limits and change her life forever. Though Ada had accepted this dangerous expedition, she was still understandably anxious about the journey ahead. Her nerves were heightened by an intense fear of polar bears, a formidable presence in the Arctic wilderness. A visit to a local shaman in Nome only added to her worries. The shaman had ominously predicted danger and death on the horizon, advising her to be wary of fire and knives. Adding to her apprehension was the prospect of traveling alone to a remote island with 4 men, a situation she found improper. The men, too, felt uneasy about journeying with a lone woman. However, Ada had already given her word, and she was reassured that more Inuit members would join the expedition during a planned stop in Siberia. With these promises, the group set off on September 9, 1921. The crew consisted of Alan Crawford, a 20-year-old Canadian, and 3 Americans, Lorne Knight and Fred Moore, both 28, and Milton Galley, who was just 19. Joining them was Ada and Vic, the expedition's kitten, gifted by the ship's crew that had ferried them to Nome. The team was inexperienced and ill-prepared, embarking on a quest that lacked a clear purpose. The expedition's leader dreamed of bringing the island under British control, even though the British government had shown no interest in acquiring it. Despite these glaring flaws, the crew set sail, burdened with inadequate supplies and unnecessary weight. A week later, they reached Wrangel Island, their intended destination. Unfortunately, their stop in Siberia had not yielded any additional Inuit members, leaving Ada as the sole native presence. Overwhelmed by the daunting wilderness and the gravity of their mission, she walked to the beach, watching the ship that had brought them slowly disappear into the horizon. Alone and filled with uncertainty, Ada couldn't hold back her tears. The landscape was beautiful but treacherous, a frozen wilderness where survival depended on skill, resourcefulness, and luck. The team was confident, however, and they set about establishing their camp and preparing for the long, harsh winter ahead. Despite this, the weather was surprisingly mild, and the team quickly settled into a routine. However, after a few weeks, things started to change. Ada, feeling intensely homesick and frightened, became withdrawn. She was haunted by the shaman's warning and was terrified every time she saw the men's knives. She was acutely aware that none of the men particularly wanted her there and regretted bringing her along, and she was convinced that Knight was plotting to kill her. One day, Ada walked off into the snow with a bottle of liniment, intending to drink it and end her life. On another occasion, she followed fox tracks away from the camp because she believed they were spirits disguised as foxes and that if she found them, they would treat her kindly. Her cooking and sewing became erratic, and in response, the men first tried to coax her back to work. When that failed, they mocked her, then began to withhold food, forcing her to stay outside in the cold and even tied her to the flagpole. At one point, they even threatened to whip her. The Arctic winter came with a vengeance, plunging the island into darkness and frigid cold. As winter drew in tightly, Ada's mood appeared to lighten as the men sagged. She threw herself into work, and the 5 united to survive the dark, cold months. Supplies dwindled faster than expected, and hunting proved difficult. Ada's skills as a seamstress proved invaluable, as she mended torn clothing and stitched fur garments to help the team withstand the biting cold. Yet the situation grew dire. Hunger gnawed at their bellies, and the isolation of the island wore on their spirits. The young men were unprepared for the brutal conditions, and morale quickly declined. They looked forward to summer and the arrival of a relief ship. But even as summer marched on, peaked and passed, the icy barrier around the island remained, and the ship that Stephenson had dispatched from Alaska was unable to reach them. By January, the expedition was in crisis. The group found themselves struggling both emotionally and physically, with their supplies nearly exhausted and no rescue in sight. Despite Stephenson's assurances that the island would be teeming with game, most of their potential prey, foxes, seals, and bears, had migrated to other parts of the island. As food grew scarce, the team's health began to deteriorate, particularly Knight, who had fallen ill after a solo expedition in the fall and was now showing symptoms of scurvy. On January 28, 1923, with temperatures dropping to a bone-chilling -50 degrees, 3 of the men, Crawford, Moore, and Gala, decided to make a desperate attempt to cross the 90-mile frozen Chukchi Sea to Siberia for help. They left Ada behind with Lorne Knight, who was too ill to travel due to scurvy, a condition that had already taken a heavy toll on him. Their mission was to seek help and organize a rescue, but sadly they were never seen again. Left alone to care for Knight, Ada found herself thrust into the role of nurse, caregiver, and sole provider. Despite her lack of medical training, she did everything in her power to keep Knight alive. She hunted Arctic foxes, set traps, and rationed their remaining food. But Knight's condition worsened. On June 23, 1923, Lorne Knight succumbed to his illness, leaving Ada Blackjack completely alone in the Arctic wilderness. With a heavy heart and weary body, Ada faced the grim reality of Knight's passing. She didn't have the strength to remove him from his sleeping bag, so she constructed a makeshift barrier of wooden boxes around his body to protect it from scavenging animals. The pungent smell of decay forced her to move into the storage tent, which now became her only sanctuary. Now truly isolated except for the comforting presence of Vic the cat, Ada found herself contemplating her uncertain future. While she clung to the hope that the men who had ventured out for help would return, doubt crept in. Could she endure another harsh winter on this desolate island? Her thoughts constantly drifted back to her son, Bennett, who was miles away, waiting for a mother who might never come back. The questions haunted her every waking moment. What if the rescue team never arrived? Would she be forced to endure another grueling winter on this unforgiving island? Would she ever hold her son in her arms again? Determined to survive, Ada drew upon every ounce of resilience she possessed. Despite her loneliness and fear, she set about creating a routine to maintain some semblance of normalcy. She hunted, fished, and continued to tend to the camp, ensuring she had enough provisions to last through the uncertain months ahead. The isolation was profound, but so was her resolve. Ada Blackjack was determined not only to survive, but to see her beloved son once again. On the morning of August 20th, Ada Blackjack awoke to a sound that seemed too good to be true. At first, she thought it was just a dream, but then she heard it again, a distant noise breaking through the silence that had surrounded her for months. Curiosity and hope surged through her as she grabbed her field glasses and hurried outside. The island was blanketed in a thick fog, as it often was, but in a fleeting moment, the mist parted just enough for Ada to catch a glimpse of a ship on the horizon. Her heart raced with a mix of excitement and disbelief. Could it be true? Had rescue finally come? Without wasting another moment, she dashed down to the beach, her feet splashing through the icy water as she rushed toward the approaching boat. As the boat reached the shore, Ada's eyes scanned eagerly for familiar faces. She expected to see Crawford, Moorer, and Gala, the men who had left months ago to seek help. But as she watched, a man she didn't recognize stepped out of the boat. It was Harold Noyce, an associate of Vilhjalmur Stephenson, the man who had organized the ill-fated expedition. Noyce, too, was taken aback. He had anticipated finding the rest of the team on the island. In that moment of mutual realization, both Ada and Noyce understood the profound gravity of the situation. Ada Blackjack, the quiet and unassuming Inupiat seamstress who had been thrust into the expedition as an afterthought, had survived against all odds. She had endured the Arctic's unforgiving elements, overcoming challenges that would have broken many others. The truth was both staggering and inspiring. Ada was the last survivor. Overwhelmed by relief and emotion, Ada collapsed into Noyce's arms, tears streaming down her face. After enduring such solitude and hardship, she was finally going home to her beloved son, Bennett. Ada's miraculous survival and return home sparked an international sensation. The media was abuzz with the story of the lone woman who had outlasted the harsh Arctic isolation when all others had perished. Yet Ada, ever humble and private, shied away from the public eye and the ensuing uproar. Her focus was solely on her family. Once back in the civilization, Ada took Bennett to Seattle to receive treatment for his tuberculosis, ensuring he received the care he needed. Later on, she remarried and had another son named Billy, and eventually returned to her roots in Alaska, where she lived out the rest of her days. Ada passed away on May 29, 1983, at the age of 85. She was laid to rest in Anchorage Memorial Park Cemetery. On her grave is a plaque, lovingly placed there by her son Billy, bearing the inscription, "The Heroine of Wrangel Island." It stands as a testament to Ada Blackjack's indomitable spirit, her quiet courage, and her incredible survival story that continues to inspire generations. Ada Blackjack's story is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. She survived the harshest conditions on Earth with sheer determination and courage. Her legacy serves as an inspiration, reminding us of the strength that lies within us all. To this day, Ada Blackjack is remembered as a true survivor, a woman who faced the impossible and emerged victorious. Her story is a reminder that even in the darkest moments, hope and resilience can light the way forward. Thank you for watching this incredible journey through the life of Ada Blackjack. We hope you found Ada's story as inspiring and moving as we did. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends and family. Feel free to leave a comment below and join the conversation. We'd love to hear your insights and any other survival stories you think we should cover. Your feedback means the world to us, and it helps us continue bringing you more captivating stories from history. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss another fascinating story. Thank you once again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.